Welcome to the SCLC commemoration program of the history and also the futuristic of what takes place as well as the present. We have all of this on this program, ladies and gentlemen, and we just thank all of you for tuning in on a weekly basis. And for none other than Ms. Zanona Clayton, all of you who responded, wow, you said you really appreciated what we did in recognition of her and her work, and particularly with the International Women Month of March, where we recognize none other than a great leader in her own right, Mrs. Zanona Clayton. And one or two of you mentioned that you didn't know that she drove Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to the airport on his last flight in the living flesh to Memphis, Tennessee, just prior to his assassination. Miss Clayton was there with the family throughout Dr. King's civil rights work, as well as accompanying them throughout their lives, and particularly immediately after the assassination of Dr. King. She was there to give comfort. But let's talk about the Moores Ford Bridge. Moores Ford Movement 365. None other than my good friend, former state representative Tyrone Brooks, has been leading this charge for many of years. But the reenactment itself has been a reality to the past for 19 years. And I never will forget when Tyrone and Representative Tyrone Brooks and Reverend James Orange and I were standing on the bridge. And Representative Brooks and Reverend James Orange and myself, classification of who the persecutors, the terrorists, the assassinationists mindset of people. Who were they individually? Many of people said some elected officials, some say even as close as being in law enforcement. Some say from the state government, from the federal government, always to the local. It's just frustrating. But let me just pause and say, kudos and all accolades, all congratulations goes to my friend and brother, none other than Representative Tyrone Brooks, for keeping this alive. And the 55th anniversary commemoration of Dr. King is up upon us at this particular time, April 4th, 1968. Don't forget that. 55 years of Dr. King. But you're talking about the Moores Ford Bridge movement. Well, let me just go over the schedule of the program with you. The commemoration and the pre-enactment rally starts at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we are just happy to know that we've been a part of this with Representative Brooks for many of years of the 19. You're talking about a rally commemorating Martin Luther King and remembering the lynching victims. Remembering none other than Miss Bonnie Jackson Ransom, Atlanta's first black first lady. Then the motorcade at 1 p.m. is going to depart from First African Baptist Church in Monroe, Georgia. Then the reenactment at 4 p.m., Moores Ford Bridge, Mount Carmel Road, and Moores Ford Road. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not witnessed this reenactment of what actually took place, because I can't tell it all here on this program, I can give you some tidbits and I can give you some insight. Like 76 years, no justice has been given to this case involving the Dorses and the Malcolms and their family. And it just disturbs me that many of people are saying don't talk about our history. When I say many of people, a few of them who really in a political position and think that they can bring about the eradication of what African Americans and others, as well as white people who worked with us and supported us, were treated the same way. We couldn't be where we are if there were not some fair-minded thinking white people, Caucasian, of the distant from which we have been removed. They were removed with us because they were called the N word. They call them N lovers. That's what they call them. I know because I was back in the day when I heard it, coming from the leaders who was all engaged in violence and not only killing black people, Negroes at the time, but also the fair-minded thinking people who happen to be of a different race, but we are all in one race, and that's the human race. But the fair-mindedness of people who supported us but didn't look like us, I want to just thank them for their involvement. And they're still there. But we have to lead the march, ladies and gentlemen. Silence, most times, is betrayal. It's betraying what you should be standing for. That's Dr. King. Silence is betrayal, most times. Not sometimes, most times. Keeping your mouth shut and criticizing others for wanting to take a stand. I just want to commend my brother, Representative Tyrone Brooks, for keeping this movement alive. And for additional information, you can call Representative Brooks, Administrative Assistant Madge Owens, the Re-Enactment Director, Reverend Cassandra Green, Reverend Hattie Lawson, the coordinator, my good friend. You can call her. Oh, guess what? You can call me right here at SCLC, Charles Steele Jr. So I want to say kudos, hats off, congratulations to all of you who's involved with keeping this alive. I just want to say to the Malcolm and Dorsey family and all of us in the family of justice, don't give in and don't give out, because this is going to come to fruition where those who might have made that transition, and justice will not be done on earth but in heaven if you make it there. I ain't sitting in no judgment place. Your transition is up to you and the Lord, but I ain't putting you nowhere, good or bad. But you don't get away with these type of sins. And when this act took place with the Dorsey and Malcolm family, let me just read what's on here. Leave the jail en route to Moore's Ford Bridge. This is the exact time, that's 3:30 p.m. This is the exact time that Lloyd Harrison, the white farmer, who took the Malcolms and Dorsey from the jail and delivered them. That's at 3:30 p.m. in July 1946. Delivered them to the KKK lynch mob of 200 people waiting at the Moore's Ford Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, July the 25th, 1946. I was born August the 3rd, 1946. July the 25th. And at 4 p.m., you arrive at the Moore's Ford Bridge for that reenactment and calling for justice, and the ceremony calling for justice, the arresting of the terrorists, and the prosecution now of those who are responsible. Historic fact, the Malcolms and the Dorseys were lynched approximately around 6 and 6:30 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, the lynching continues, but no justice was brought to this case. The lynching continues in many ways. In many ways, the lynching still continues. When you can't get the government to bring about the great events of collaborating for poor people. When people run for office, you don't even hear them talking about helping poor people. One fellow told me, Steele, I'm worse than that. I'm poor. When you're poor, you got 2 O's. When you're poor, you got 1. So I'm worse off than being poor. And people living on the street. And this is a government that's supposed to be for all of the people under the banner of the United States of America, the land of the free, home of the brave. And the one who say that we are setting an example for the world in democracy. And we still allow these types of behavior. Getting lynched with not getting the contract. Getting lynched with not having food on the table. Getting lynched by being evicted from your homes. One young lady was telling me not long ago in her particular city, state, 10,000 people are expected to be evicted before March is out. Did you hear me? My Lord, 10,000 people. And that's Prince George County in Maryland. Supposed to be the richest county in America for African Americans. My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, we must come together. And guess what? You don't have to follow the movement of justice and equality or Moore's Forward Bridge. It only takes a few of us who are really concerned to get involved and stop the travesty which is taking place in this country, and everybody are very silent. Just want to get on TV, just want to sit in the main seat behind the cameras and in front of the cameras. You want to be in the middle of all of this, but you're doing nothing to stand up for Moore's Forward Bridge. We got to stop what we're doing in terms of the individuality of what we're doing, just about ourselves. Again, thank you, Representative Brooks. You know, we've been on a many marches together. And to others, let's join together. It's more than the 6 o'clock news. It's more than just marching to be on the front line. Oh boy. Thank you for watching, because love is what love does, and we must love one another. Have a great day.